and welcome to Weekly WoW News. In this series, I take a look at news about World of Warcraft from the past week and just kind of offer my commentary on it. So we're not doing anything too special here, just going to go through the Wowhead different articles and take a look at what has been announced or what sort of patches we've got in the past week, and I'm going to offer my opinion on them. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around. If not, then go ahead and skip on to whatever the next video is. So we're going to kick things off here talking about the BlizzCon key art, and I don't have a lot to say here. Also, just so you know, I'm skipping a ton of news that I don't think is, worth talking about, like patches that don't offer many changes and things like that. But I did want to take a look at this BlizzCon. This is the key art for BlizzCon 2018, and I wanted to bring this up mainly because I wanted to take a look at this piece of art of Sourfang here, because I think this is going to come into play with some of the other news that we talk about in just a little bit here. So he's in here with this piece of art, which means that they intend for whatever's going on with him to be a big key part of BlizzCon. So we'll come back to that a little bit later. Next up, we have some hotfixes that came out on September 11th. The main thing I want to talk about here is they have changed it now so that you have to be item level 320 in order to queue for Warfront in the first place. The reason for this is they kind of wanted people to not get to max level and immediately jump into Warfronts, farm there for 340 gear, and essentially skip the entire progression of World Quest into Dungeons into Heroics. So that's a thing now. So if you are on Alliance side contributing, just know that if you're not item level 320, you won't be able to enter the Warfront when it does come time for you to do so. I think this is going to be more and more relevant as time goes on, because there will be other ways to gear up quickly. So not too big of a deal. Next, they announced the virtual ticket for BlizzCon. So for those of us who aren't able to attend BlizzCon itself, there's the virtual ticket that you can use to watch the different events be live streamed to you in real time. And usually there's a bunch of bonus goodies included in the form of in-game content. Well, this year the price for the virtual ticket is now $50 US, which is the highest it's ever been. And on top of that, we haven't seen hardly any of the content that is supposed to be available for it as a goodie. We definitely haven't seen the stuff for World of Warcraft. I think so far we've just seen a skin for Overwatch, Demon Hunter Sombra. So that is a pretty hefty price for the ticket. In the past, I've gotten the tickets most of the time when I could afford them and when the goodies were good enough. But I don't know, $50, that's an entire game I could buy instead of a virtual ticket. So I'm interested to see if they're going to have virtual goodies that are going to justify the price tag on the virtual tickets, or is this just, kind of like a money grab because they think they can get the money from people regardless. So we'll see. Next up, we had some possible new Warfront locations discovered. Essentially, you could put in this command and it would pop up with these lines here talking about the different Warfronts. So we have the one down here, Battle for Stromgarde. Donate supplies to the war effort as the impending battle over Arathi Highlands nears. So we know Battle for Stromgarde, that's a confirmed Warfront. There's one here talking about Ashara, one for Silvermoon, and one for the Barrens. Now, we're going to get to it, but there was another Warfront revealed, and it is not any of these three. So we'll have to see if it actually does end up being that any of these actually do become Warfronts. Barrens was data mined, I think, during the beta, so I imagine that one is actually going to happen, but we'll have to see. Just like I said, none of these were the confirmed one that we found out about today. Island Expeditions, rewards are increasing in a future hotfix. I think this is the actual hotfix is in a piece of news coming up, so we'll just check that out there. There was a AMA Ask Me Anything on the WoW subreddit with Ian 4 days ago, the game director, where he went through and he answered a lot of questions, and in my opinion, he did what they typically do, which is don't really address the heart of the issue. They address the surface of the issue, and a lot of what they say is, oh, more stuff is coming down the pipeline, so don't worry about it, guys. And yeah, that doesn't do anything to comfort me in terms of the issues that I think, the worries and concerns I have regarding the expansion so far. But he did talk about several different things. If you haven't read through the AMA or followed up on what he actually said, I recommend that you do that. I'm not going to go through the entire thing on this news video, but let's just say that I didn't feel like anything that he said stood out as being something that was significantly newsworthy and like, oh man, they're really making a difference to the current state of the game. A lot of it sounded like, it's okay, we'll make it a little better, I guess. So we'll see what happens. So the hot fixes for island expeditions came in. They substantially increased drop rates for various bonus rewards such as transmog items, pets, quest starters, and mounts. So these are all the things that were supposed to make islands feel more like something you actually would want to go do and farm for the possibility of cool rewards instead of just like an Azerite grind machine. They didn't say what substantially means. It could be from 0.01% drop rate to 0.05% drop rate, and that's a substantial increase. So we don't have the actual number, but hopefully this is going to mean that those rewards are actually going to drop more often. And one of the issues I think still is relevant for island expeditions is the fact that there is no way in game to actually view what you can get from island expeditions in one central place. So I think if they did something like that, if they added it to the journal like they do for dungeons and stuff, I was really surprised that it wasn't in there, that you couldn't go in and look up, oh, for island expeditions, these are the mounts I can get, these are the pets I can get. So either way, hopefully this substantial increase is actually substantial and not, something as silly as 0.01 to 0.05. But we'll see as time goes on and we start figuring out how often people are getting these drops. Next up, the Warfronts, they have actually transitioned over, so this is one of the things that we were wondering, like, when does everything reset? Well, it resets when the Warfronts switch hands, so now you can go back and you can farm the rares in Arathi again if you want to try to get the mount drops or toys or pets or loot. Also, now the Alliance is in the contributions phase, and they're working their way towards being able to do the Warfronts themselves, which means that if you're playing on a Horde character, you need to go down to Arathi and do your actual quests that are there. You can kill the world boss now. Also, doing the quest gets you a cache that has a 340 piece of gear in it. You also get some war resources and some other stuff like that. I tried to go out and do some rares a little bit later in the evening yesterday, and there was not a lot of people out there, so I don't know if people just don't realize that it has reset and they haven't gone back yet, and maybe they were waiting for today, or if people just aren't that interested in farming the rares on my particular server. But just a public service announcement, whether you're Horde or Alliance, the rares should have reset for you, so you can go back out there and try to farm them again for the transmogs and all the collectible items. So make sure that you do that. If you're on Alliance side, go turn in your collections, get your rep, get your Azerite power, and work your way towards being able to do the Warfronts themselves. Another piece of news, there was this really interesting article by the person who is behind Deadly Boss mods, and they basically were talking about how life is hard, and they've dedicated the majority of their life to making Deadly Boss mods, and they're not able to sustain what they're doing now. They're taking care of their widowed mother and all this other stuff. In that short context, it probably sounds like a plea for help or a cry for money, but I really didn't take it that way. If you use Deadly Boss mods and you have the ability to support the person who has been making this mod since it initially came out, has been doing this for years and years and years, then I would encourage you to go to their Patreon page. You can check that out, patreon.com/deadlybossmods, and He's gone up by like 1,000 patrons since the last time I looked, and yeah, just support this guy, help him out. I mean, he's basically running on like $1,400 a month prior to putting out this post, to take care of himself and his mother, you know, because he wants to put the time into doing deadly boss mods. So I'll end the advertisement there. I personally don't even really use deadly boss mods most of the time, but I think that, you know, it's been an important add-on to World of Warcraft since its initial inception, and many people use it. So if you've got, you know, $1 or more per month that you can spare to give to the creator of deadly boss mods, go check out the Patreon and help him out. Blizzard revamped the Recruit a Friend page. They updated it with new graphics, new fancy graphics and things like that. Recruit your friends, adventure together, reap the rewards. But, you know, what they don't say on here is they basically killed most of the good things about Recruit a Friend. So I'm really just wanted to say, don't get too lured in by this. And when I say that, mostly what they did is they changed the XP boost from Recruit a Friend to be, instead of 200% bonus, it's now 50% bonus. So they took away 150% of the bonus XP that you used to get for Recruit a Friend. In addition, if you're wearing heirlooms, the XP bonus you get from heirlooms doesn't stack with that bonus. So one of the big things with Recruit a Friend was, you know, having the ability to really just boost your characters and level really quickly and get to max level. That's kind of taken out. Also now, they have to purchase 2 months of game time for you to get a free month. And if they purchase 3 months, then you do get one of the special rewards. The rewards are the mounts and the pets. If you have a friend who's going to play anyway, use the Recruit a Friend system. You might as well. You do get a little bonus, and you have the potential to get one of these cool mounts or pets. If not, it's not really worth trying to recruit them and, you know, think that you're going to power level them up. That being said, this mount here, the Onyx, I forget what it's called, and the Rocket are 2-person mounts. So if you do happen to get Recruit a Friend and you make it all the way up to the stage where you can choose from a mount or a pet, I would recommend this one or this one, because you can have a 2-seater mount, and that comes in pretty handy for a lot of like old school farming, or if you want to, you know, power level together or anything like that. There was already world first solo of one of the Uldir raid bosses, but it was due to a protection paladin talent called Last Defender, where each enemy within 8 yards reduces the damage that you take and increases the damage that you deal by up to 3%. He basically used a debuff from one of the dungeons that spawns a bunch of worms, and he caused it to spawn a ton of worms, and he dragged the debuff into the raid and then used that damage reduction and increase in order to solo the boss. And that did get nerfed. We're going to see that here in a minute, but I wanted to point this out as the reason that Last Defender, or some of these abilities, got nerfed. The next maintenance, which was today, is going to contain Azerite trait tuning. So some of the different Azerite traits have been tuned up or tuned down. They're trying to fix some of the outliers so that the more powerful stuff is brought down in line with some of the other abilities, and some of the worst ones are brought up into the middle. I honestly don't care about this because it doesn't make the Azerite traits any more interesting, and that's really my complaint. Yes, some of these do seem super weak compared to other ones, and it's like, why would I ever choose this trait over this trait when this trait obviously is way more powerful? But tweaking the amount of damage and things that are being done by these different traits doesn't make them more interesting. And for me, they're still passive procs and things like that that I don't care about, because they don't really change the way that I play my character. One of the things I wanted to mention from this news post is there are some upcoming animations for Holy Paladins. They have an example of one here where they're casting Holy Light using a book. So that's something that they started working on during the beta, and they said they didn't have time to get it in by launch, but it's something they're still working on. Wow, really? So yeah, new animations are in the works for Holy Paladins. That's pretty cool. The Harvest Festival started today. There's not a whole lot going on with the Harvest Festival. There are some feast tables that are outside of Orgrimmar or Ironforge. You can sample some different foods. You can collect those foods, not like collect them like for an achievement, but you can gather them, keep them in your bags. I think they restore 4% of your max health every second, so they're pretty good healing foods to have around if you're a class that needs some healing, like maybe a warrior. And they don't go away when the holiday ends. In addition to that, you can get a little quest to leave a tribute item at the monument to one of your faction's big figures. For the Horde, that's Grom Hellscream, and for the Alliance, it's Uther the Lightbringer. When you do that, you're also able to go check out the new tomb. They updated Uther's tomb with new graphics and all kinds of stuff. But what I find interesting is they didn't upgrade the monument to Grom, which makes me think that this tomb for Uther is going to come into play later on at some point. There's been a lot of things pointing towards some kind of plot point with the Lich King. I personally think that with what they're doing with the light forged undead characters, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll catch you up sometime, or I'll point you in the direction of a good video that will explain it. But essentially, the light has now created undead characters, and I'm really starting to think that some of the characters that we saw that were turned evil for whatever reason, like maybe Arthas, will be brought back as the light forged version, undead version of themselves. Maybe have a chance at redemption. I don't know. That could be a little bit out there. I don't know how players would feel about Arthas coming back as not the Lich King. But anyway, there is an updated tomb for Uther. If you're on Alliance side, then you can go check that out as part of the Harvest Festival. Also, you're able to get these spirit shards. You've got the Anxious, Forlorn, Peaceful, and Vengeful. And what these do is they will tint your character the color of the stone. So like the Vengeful one is red. It'll tint your color, your character to look the color like right here. See how there's like a red, sort of reddish, transparent glow to the character? That's from the Vengeful. And then there's a purple, a green, and a blue. So depending on which one you get, you're able to change your character's color. And you get to pick one of these after you do the quest. But that's really all that's going on in the Harvest Festival. It's not really worth making a guide about, so I just wanted to touch on it in the news. So here's the big piece of news. We had a stream today from Ian where he talked about what's coming next. What's next for Battle for Azeroth? What is the next patch going to have? The next content patch is called Tides of Vengeance. I don't think they confirmed like if this was going to be 8.1, but it certainly sounds like it's going to be 8.1. Just don't take that as fact. So there's a bunch of stuff coming, and this is where I wanted to talk about that BlizzCon key art that we had over here. So they use it again here when they're talking about story-driven content. So some of the things that are going to happen: the war campaign is going to continue. There are going to be incursions, new world quest, and character storylines. So we'll get around to talking to what those are about in just a minute. I wanted to point out that they're using Sourfang for the BlizzCon art. It's the exact same piece of art here, which makes me think a couple of things. One, either they were reacting to the backlash for the expansion, so they decided to go ahead and release details about these patches and things that are coming up in the expansion to try to mitigate some of the negativity that was coming from the player base. And so they moved up ahead of schedule and started talking about this, because the fact that we have both pieces, and this is the key art for BlizzCon, it's the big thing that showcases, hey, this is what's going to be next in our games. You know, it makes me think maybe this was something they were supposed to talk about at BlizzCon, and instead they went ahead and started talking about it now because of the backlash. Or it could mean that maybe this patch is going to come out around BlizzCon, or maybe some stuff for this patch will come out, but it won't be the character storylines yet, and they'll talk more about the character storyline for Sourfang at BlizzCon. Or that could all be wrong, and they could just be like, whatever, it doesn't matter. We'll just throw this on the key art for BlizzCon, because why not? But I think it's one of those other reasons. Either they moved it up, or the patch is coming out around BlizzCon, or it's coming out before then, but they're going to talk about Sourfang's storyline, and maybe some of these other character storylines at BlizzCon. Alright, so the war campaign is going to continue. There are going to be incursions. These are going to be from Ashara. Basically, not Ashara, sorry. These are going to be the opposite faction, kind of like going really hard attacking a particular zone. So maybe the Horde gets a foothold in Tiragard Sound, and they have a bunch of ships, and they're sending out troops and stuff into the area. It's going to take over the zone just like the Demon Invasions did in Legion, and also these are going to be the world quests are going to be replaced with new world quests specific to that invasion, and just like in Legion, you're going to be able to use those invasions to level up your alts. That's really exciting for me. Like, out of everything here, I'm not going to say it's the most exciting thing for me, but that is how I got most of my characters from 100 to 110, was by using the Demon Invasions in Legion, and basically anytime one was up, I would run all my characters through every single world quest, and then just put them on the back burner until the next one came up, and then I would run all of them through the world quest again for those invasions, because they were a great source of XP. They were a nice change up from doing the regular storylines, so I'm definitely excited to see these incursions come and work in a similar manner to invasions and legions, because I got a lot of alts to level to make guides and stuff. There are going to be new world quests. Woo! That's pretty much how I feel about that. And then they're talking about character storylines for Sourfang, which I am excited to see, because I think he's a pretty cool character. Tyrande, who I hope is going to turn into a badass bitch after everything that happened with Malfurion and the tree and everything else. Like, she better come back with a vengeance. And then Vol'jin, who I'm always happy to see more about Vol'jin, because he was really awesome and definitely got pushed out of the war chief position too soon, I think. Along with that, they started talking about heritage armor for non-allied race classes. So this is something that's really cool, I think. The first two races that are going to be getting their heritage armor are dwarves and blood elves. They didn't show any art for the blood elves, but they did show the stuff for the dwarves. And the way that he said this is going to work is that if you are at max level and you are exalted with your racial faction, so if you are a dwarf and you're exalted with Ironforge, and if you are a blood elf and you're exalted with Silvermoon, then you'll just be able to step into a quest and do the quest, discover some stuff about your racial heritage, and then unlock the heritage armor that way. So thankfully, you don't have to level a dwarf from 1 to 110 or 120 or whatever the requirements normally are, but if you are playing a dwarf or a blood elf or honestly any other thing, make sure you're exalted with your racial faction, because whenever these heritage armors do come down, that's going to be the requirement, it looks like, is just to be exalted with your own racial faction, do a quest line, unlock the armor. So this is really exciting. It's really cool. I'm glad to see that they are doing this. A lot of the player base was requesting this, and I think it's awesome that they are going to be doing it as we go on. This dwarf armor looks pretty dope. I like the belt. I like the shoulders. It's all pretty cool. So I'm excited to see what the rest of them look like as well. We're getting a new Warfront in this patch. This is going to be the Battle for Darkshore. So this Warfront is supposed to be about the Alliance striking back against the Horde. And so the Alliance is going to be starting off being able to contribute and do the Warfront, while the Horde will have control of it and will be able to do their quest lines and the world boss if they have one. They haven't confirmed that there will be a world boss yet. But if there is one, then the Horde will be able to kill it then. It's going to be focused on Night Elves versus the Forsaken. So it sounds like we're going to get different looking buildings instead of the traditional orc or human ones. Don't quote me on that because they didn't say it, outright. But I'm hoping that's the case. There's going to be new structures such as ballistas and things like that. And then they're going to update Darkshore to have max level rares and things for you to do as well. They didn't explicitly say that they were upgrading the graphics of Darkshore, but I would assume that that's going to be the case since that's what they did with the Arathi Highlands. And this is one of the things that I actually love the most about Warfront, regardless of how interesting they are or not as a gameplay mechanic. I love the fact that they are an excuse for Blizzard to go back and update the old world and bring the graphics up to the quality of Battle for Azeroth. I think that's awesome. I think every time we get one of these and they get to upgrade the zone, that's going to be fantastic. So that is coming, and I just want to say that if this image here, if this is like the Warfront armor that you can collect, the transmog set, it's pretty damn cool. I like it a lot. So I'm excited to hopefully, if you actually get like a cool kilt looking trench coaty sort of thing here, that's going to be awesome. So there's going to be some new and updated island expeditions. There's going to be 2 new base islands, Jorundal, which is like a Vrykul sort of island that is, overrun with a bunch of crazy Viking-looking peoples. And then Havenswood, which is supposed to be a sort of abandoned Gilnean town. So it's going to have buildings and things, and it's supposed to look more civilized than any of the islands that we've done so far. There's going to be new events like holdouts or Azerite, extractors that you can set up, and they'll constantly trickle in Azerite for you. But then you have to worry about the enemy coming along and taking those away from you and getting that Azerite stream. They also were talking about wanting to cluster up mobs and make it a little more like going through the actual world, where there's spaces where you can just travel through and it's not just mobs spawned everywhere. Alright, so new island expeditions. I don't think any of that news makes them more interesting as a gameplay element. I still just see them as an Azerite grind. A lot of that goes back to whether or not the hotfix that increase the drops actually makes a difference. And then we got a couple of raid announcements. So we got something incredibly crazy. There was a lot of talk about this before Battle for Azeroth came out, about having a raid that was different depending on whether you were Horde or Alliance. And they're actually doing it. The new raid, the tentative name is Siege of Zuldazar. So this is about the Alliance striking out against the Horde and getting a preemptive strike against the Zandalari trolls. There are going to be 9 total bosses, and basically the Alliance is going to land at the docks of Zuldazar. They're going to work their way up the pyramid to Rastakhan, who is the leader of the Zandalari trolls. The Horde is going to start to the north of the pyramid and work their way down to Rastakhan. Then they'll work up to the docks and fight against Alliance commanders, including fighting Jaina on the high seas. Once you have completed the raid, you'll be able to talk to your scouts and get information from the factions in order to go and experience the other 3 unique bosses. So basically what they're doing is they're kind of using hey, tell me what happened before we got here, and that lets you go and fight the other bosses. I don't know if you're going to be doing that as your Horde characters, or if you'll be in disguise, kind of like you were in the caverns, some of the Caverns of Time dungeons, where they send you, everybody look like a human or whatever. So I don't know if it's going to be like that, where you sort of relive things through the Alliance shoes while you fight Horde bosses, or if it's just, you look like your Horde character. They announced another raid, Crucible of Storms. This is going to be a 2-boss raid underneath Stormsong Temple in Stormsong Valley. And this is where we start to kind of see the old gods, Ashara type stuff coming into play. They're supposed to be releasing supporting content with it, so that if you're on the Horde side, you actually can kind of know what the heck is going on. Because if you haven't played through Stormsong Valley on an Alliance character, then it's kind of like being an Alliance character right now and going to fight Gahoon. You're like, where did this come from? Like, there were no blood trolls, blood god stuff going on over in Kul Tiras. Well, they're trying to prevent that by having some supporting content come out for the Horde side and Alliance, I assume. So that you actually have a feel for what's going on once you are able to do this raid. Alright, there's also some system improvements coming. They are basically making Champions of Azeroth account-wide. The reputation is going to be account-wide, so once you hit like Exalted with your character, what they have said, what Ian said in the stream is once you hit Exalted with your character, then if you have an alt, once that character reaches max level, they'll also be able to get the item level increase from Champions of Azeroth for your Heart of Azeroth. There are a lot of transmog items that are locked behind reputations that you aren't able to get on different characters. They basically have said that they're going to unlock those restrictions on characters. Also, reputations that are at Exalted are all going to contribute to the achievement to get a certain number of Exalted reputations. So if you have like 30 Exalted reputations on one character and 20 on another, you would have 50 total. There are some caveats to that. You know, the Horde and Alliance ones don't add up together, so you still have to kind of get everything on one faction, but that's an improvement that's coming. The Zandalari Trolls and Kul Tiran allied races are not coming during this content, but they should be coming soon after. They also said that there isn't going to be another faction you have to rep up with in order to unlock them, but that if you are Exalted with the Proudmoore Admiralty on the Alliance side or the Zandalari Empire on the Horde side, then that's all you're going to need as far as reputation goes. You will probably have to do some sort of a quest or more of the war campaign, but no rep grinding for that once you're Exalted with these factions that already exist. So if you're wanting one of those races, you can already go and work on one of the requirements for getting it right now. This will be coming to the PTR pretty soon. I'll be trying to hop on there and check out some of the stuff on the PTR for the channel, but this is basically everything that they talked about. I know that's a lot of stuff, but I think that they wanted to dump a lot of stuff onto us and say, hey guys, please don't leave. Like, there's all this stuff coming. We know, maybe we kind of screwed some stuff up, or maybe you don't like some stuff as much as we hoped you would, but here's all this stuff coming, so please stick around. So, we already talked about the Kul Tiran and Zandalari Troll allied races and how you unlock those. The final bit of news is that they have talked a little bit about the Elemental Shaman changes coming in patch 8.1. I personally don't think much of what they've said here is all that exciting. Yeah, they do have 2 new talents that are coming. The level 60 row has Call the Thunder, level 90 has Surge of Power, but they don't say what these are. So there's some stuff in here that might be exciting, but for the most part, it doesn't seem all that exciting. It seems like they're just trying to tune them up or down a little bit, but we'll see if they have any more changes planned. The big thing that I think is pretty significant in here is they've shifted some of the damage from Earth Shock to Lightning Bolt, so now Lightning Bolt will hit harder, which is going to be nice because Lightning Bolt does feel kind of wimpy, which is weird because it's one of the abilities that you use all the time, and as they mentioned, Elemental Shaman is the only lightning-based spellcaster, so you would think that their lightning stuff would do a lot of damage and really fit the theme of their character. So that's what's going on. That is all the news from the past week. Pretty big week with the AMA and also with the stream earlier today. A lot of new content coming. It doesn't really change what's going on now, so and they didn't give us a date on when this patch was going to be coming down the pipeline, so who knows whether it's going to be a month, 2 months, 3 months, even longer before we get any of this content. But I know I'll be hanging in there simply for the incursions and the ability to level my alts up, a little bit faster, a little bit easier through those. So what I want to ask here at the end of the news is, what did you think? What's the big standout thing for you from this news week? What's got you excited, or what has got you, filled with a little bit of trepidation about the future of World of Warcraft? What do you think about the key art for BlizzCon and Sourfang? Let me know what you think about that stuff. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, hit the subscribe button. Give me a like. Whatever you want to do to support the channel. I appreciate you watching. I am on the recovering end of this sickness, so I should have new videos coming out here pretty soon. And as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.